Chapter 8. The Economic Policy of the Soviet Government in the Field of Industry during the Civil War. Soviet power, in the context of the onset of Civil War and intervention, forced the nationalization of large, medium and small industries. This measure was both politically expedient and economically necessary. Depriving the exploiters of the economic base, the dictatorship of the proletariat weakened the resistance of the class enemy within the country. By concentrating in its hands the management of production, the Soviet state could most successfully use the available reserves of raw materials and fuel, maneuver them. During the Civil War, in spite of all the hardships and difficulties, the Soviet government solved three fundamental economic and political tasks of the Socialist Revolution. 1. By nationalizing all industry, the Soviet government deprived the class enemies of their economic base and thereby deprived the exploiters of influence on the working masses during the most violent class battles. 2. The dictatorship of the working class, having expropriated capital as property, seized the commanding heights of the national economy of the country. In particular, the necessary material and technical base was created to resolve directly military tasks. The concentration of material resources in the hands of the state facilitated the task of their most expedient use in accordance with the basic tasks of the Socialist Revolution in the conditions of the Civil War. 3. Soviet power created the economic apparatus of the dictatorship of the working class. During the nationalization of industry and the mastery of its production apparatus, a centralized control system was created, the head offices and centers whose work was of great importance. The foundations of the socialist organization of production were laid. Thousands of new leaders, organizers from working-class people, were trained on this experience. The conquest of economic commanding heights by the working class strengthened the basis of the dictatorship of the proletariat. In its hands were the necessary levers of state management of economic construction. Concentration in the hands of the proletarian state of all means of production, factories, mines, transport, banks, etc., was the material basis of victories on the fronts of the Civil War. The dictatorship of the proletariat in a backward and devastated country turned out, as Lenin noted, stronger than its enemies through centralization, discipline, and the unprecedented self-sacrifice of the masses. This affected the advantage of the Soviet socialist system over the capitalist system. In the camp of imperialism, bickering, property separates, but we unite and unite more and more millions of working people in the whole world. Lenin. Collected Works, Volume XXV, p. 97. The dictatorship of the working class, having mastered the commanding heights of the national economy, begins to systematically regulate the economic life of the country. The expropriation of expropriators and the organization of production on a socialist basis were carried out by our party on the basis of a broad mobilization of the creative activity and initiative of the working class. By the end of 1918, the largest enterprises of the main industries were already in the hands of the state. Of the total number of 2,935 companies operating at the end of August 1918, according to the orders of the commanders, there were 1,506 enterprises, or 51%. The decisive part of industry was already in the hands of the state. In 1919 and in the 1920s, nationalization of industry was completed. In the hands of the state concentrated large, medium and small industrial enterprises. At first, only large and especially important factories were nationalized. By a decree of November 29, 1920, nationalization was extended to all industrial enterprises run by individuals or societies. All enterprises with a number of workers over 5 people were nationalized with a mechanical engine or 10 people, if there was no mechanical engine. All property and capitals of enterprises, wherever they were declared the property of the Republic. The provincial councils of the national economy were asked to proceed immediately to the admission of all nationalized enterprises and their property and to the organization of production management. The members of the boards, directors, sole proprietors and other responsible administrators were ordered to remain in their seats until the affairs of the Council of the National Economy were handed over, and they were fully responsible for the safety of the property. All the service and technical personnel were declared to be in the service of the RSFSR. According to the data of the Supreme Council of the National Economy, on October 1, 1919, according to the instructions of the commanders of the Supreme Economic Council, there were 2,522 nationalized industrial enterprises with a total number of 750,619 workers. On April 1, 1920, the number of nationalized enterprises increased to 4,141, and the number of workers in them increased to 983,049. National Economy, number 13, 14 for 1920, p. 57. The following table shows the distribution of the continuously operating during the period 1918-1920 enterprises for different categories of customers. The total number of these enterprises reached almost 3,000 during these years.